Hey, Big Life listeners, we hope you are just as excited as we are for the near playoff season. And our sponsor, Snuggable, is ready to help us kick off today's episode with their top 3 tips for making the most of off-season upcoming this fall.
Our first tip is to get festive. I can't emphasize this enough. Getting festive is one of my favorite parts of the fall and holiday season, and I'm pretty sure I just felt the serotonin rushing back to my brain just thinking about that holiday decor.
And tip number 2 for making the most of this holiday season this fall, eat good. I know it's officially pumpkin spice season, so why not embrace these fall flavors that the season brings, or even try some new things? And of course, Thanksgiving is all about eating good, and everyone knows the real treat is a Friendsgiving.
And our final and most important tip, get cozy. Light those fall scented candles, sip that hot cocoa, and of course, take time to relax in your Snuggable, especially during these colder Michigan months. My Snuggable is a must-have, and I'm very picky when it comes to what I consider a comfy fit that I can just lounge around in. It has to fit a certain way, it has to feel a certain way, and I honestly don't think I own any hoodies or blankets softer than the Snuggable. It's a hoodie, blanket, and pillow plushie all in one. They're so cute with so many different designs, perfectly oversized, just stretchy enough, and of course, super soft. Trust me when I say you need to snag one for yourself at plushable.com and be sure to use the code THEBIGLIFE for 15% off your Snuggable. As always, let's soccer on, but also remember to take time to soccer off during this off season.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to episode 15 of this season of The Big Life. Jordyn, the bracket is set. Postseason is here. How are we feeling?
Hearing our name called at the selection show, it's been different every year, obviously. Like freshman year was the first time in forever that we've made it. And the fact that we even were in the tournament was so exciting for us. And then turning around to last year, we were hoping for a better seed and you're still fighting for this. And this year it was a weird feeling because we knew we were making the tournament and there's this expectation of how good we think we were and what we were able to accomplish this season. And at one point we were ranked number 1 to then falling to like a 5 seed. I think it was exciting in some ways to see how hungry people were that we thought we could have accomplished more this season in our seeding. I don't think we deserved better than a 5 with the way our season ended. I don't think we were misplaced at all. I make that clear, but I think had the potential to accomplish a lot more. And to kind of like feel that room, I think was exciting going into post and to see how hungry people were to prove what we're capable of. But in a lot of ways, hearing that name called in the postseason, knowing that the moment I lose, my career is officially over as a Spartan. And that just kind of like solidified that. And it was a very weird feeling, a very weird mix of emotions to know that like today could have been my last lift. I have 4 guaranteed practices left, 1 guaranteed game. No matter what, Saturday will be my last game at DeMartin, win or lose. And it brought up a lot of, I think, like those emotions as you go into kind of facing the end of your career in postseason.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes total sense. I remember literally going through it last year and like being excited, but being sad. I've said it before. I think probably one of my worst games in my college career was our first game of the NCAA tournament last year because it's like you're trying to balance so much of, it was our first time ever playing an NCAA game at home. It was my last game at home. And it's like what you said about the selection show. It's so interesting. Like my freshman year was kind of the same. Iowa had never gotten an at-large bid. And so it was kind of like, oh my God, you heard your name called. We really weren't sure. Like we were one of those teams on the bubble. So like hearing it, everyone jumped, everyone screamed. And I remember like, so my sophomore and my 5th year, when we also made the tournament, my coach was like, why didn't you guys celebrate? And we were like, we knew because we had won the Big Ten tournament. Like it was just kind of like we were just waiting. So it's really different. And to now have it almost like not where you're let down, but you're like, okay, like now it's hungry season. And it's really interesting to navigate and see the difference of emotions that one bracket can turn. But so for those who maybe think we're crazy, don't necessarily know exactly what we're talking about, the NCAA tournament bracket was dropped yesterday. The tournament will kick off this weekend with games being played Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So 64 Division I college soccer teams are still in season, which is always just something to kind of like humble yourself. And as much as you're so excited to keep playing these games, you're like, oh, I'm one of 64 of 333 teams still playing. So remembering that's obviously important. And now it's a winner take all single game elimination tournament where the first round will be played this week. Next week, teams will be either going to the 1 or 2 seed, assuming there's no upsets, to play both the round of 32 and the round of 16. And then Elite Eight, and then the next weekend in Cary, North Carolina, the Final Four will be played. So a lot of thoughts on these brackets, Jordyn. I got to ask you the first, Western Michigan. What was your thoughts on that draw?
Yeah. Going a little bit of additional context here. So you mentioned an at-large bid that we got, and for anyone who doesn't know how that works, 30 of the 64 teams are automatically get into the NCAA tournament because they won their conference tournament. And then from there, 34 teams are selected by the committee that get an at-large bid based on their season, RPI, which we went into a couple episodes ago, which is basically like just a formula of how well your season went with ranked wins, things of that nature. And they decide those 34 teams that will make it in addition to the 30 teams that won their conference. But yeah, Western Michigan, it's actually funny because I went and saw their conference final game versus Buffalo because our good friend and number one listener, Kelly Severini, she played here for a couple years and then she took her grad year at Buffalo. So love her to death. We went and a bunch of us went to go watch that game and support her. And we saw them play each other. And in the back of our mind, we kind of knew like there was a real possibility of us playing the winner of that game. So we kind of, I mean, in a way, got to like go scout them. Not that we were there for them in that moment, but we definitely, got to see them play beforehand. I think they're a talented team. Their RPI, they finished better than us. So they are nothing like while they were an unranked team going into it and we should win and we're the home seed and all of that stuff being a 5 seed here, but they're a very, very talented team. And I think we definitely have our hands full for a first round game for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, I might bring them up later in this podcast. I think to me, that was one of the shocks of the draw. And I don't mean that in a sense of like, of course. So also, there will be a regional aspect to a lot of these first round games. Not always. We did play Bucknell, which is on the East Coast last year, but they try to keep it relatively regionally. So you can kind of guess. I will actually say, like, my mom and I were texting yesterday. We had a lot of the Midwest kind of predicted about how the seeding would go. But I thought Western Michigan would get a seed. And I will go on record. I think it's completely like that was probably my ripoff of the tournament was Western Michigan not getting a seed. I know they're in the MAC. I know they're not a Power Four or a team you think of a lot. They've tied two Big Ten schools this year, including Iowa and Wisconsin. I think they have a lot of talent. I think they had the nation's leading goal scorer for a hot while and a player in Jen Blitchock who played at Indiana, so was a Big Ten player. And I think there's a lot that team has done. And I think they completely got ripped off. So it's a tough game for both of you guys. And I think it's one that probably shouldn't be a first round matchup.
Yeah, I think a lot of us had thought we were going to play Milwaukee. We played them 2 years ago in the first round, but we also thought that Western had the possibility of being a seeded team. So that was a little bit surprising. We knew there was a good chance that we still could play them because as much as you want to say it's just straight based off of your wins, losses, ranking wise, there's a huge financial aspect that plays. And for them to be so close to us in the tournament with us and to not, have that set up that way, I think it would be a little bit surprising in that aspect too for the NCAA not to take advantage of that. But yeah, they're a super talented team. They have a bunch of fifth-year transfers on their team from big time schools. And yeah, a very, very talented team. I know there's a lot of girls who on our team that have like personal connection to either their coach that I think coached at Midwest or one of the big Michigan clubs here. I'm not from Michigan, so I don't know exactly which club it was anymore. I'm pretty sure it was United, but a lot of girls like know him. They know a lot of the girls on the team, have that personal connection to it, which is always so fun to play with. And it brings just that extra competitive nature as your rivals and your friends on the field. So I think it'll be a really exciting game. It's, yeah, again, no easy first round game for sure. And then if you win, we're going to Duke versus most likely Texas. So it's, it's very, very real. I think once you get into the middle of the bracket though, like I don't like there's no easy teams, period. Like I'm not looking at it going like I wish I was in this bracket or this half of the bracket or this side at all. Like everyone's so good. It's 50-50 on any game really.
And saying we've seen it a million times before. It doesn't have to be the team that's the highest seed or the most talented, you know. In soccer, it's one of those you can outscore a team 21-1, but if that one goes in, you can lose 1-0. And I think that's one of the best and cruel parts of our game. So when it becomes tournament time like this, it's a reality check that any moment. I mean, like I keep referring to it last year, but in the first round we played Bucknell and they took us to two overtimes. We ended up winning 2-0, which is kind of weird that normally doesn't happen in overtime, but they took us to two overtimes. We couldn't score. I think we had 31 shots to 5, but still, so moments like that, you never know. And Jordyn, while we're talking about first round matchups, was there any other, potential upsets that you're sniffing out or any other games that you're looking at?
Other potential, hold on, Sam.
Oh,
Okay, talented team,
you
potential
are a
upset.
talented team. I will say, if I have an upset anywhere, I'm not putting anything against you. But that's a first. Okay, I won't say it this way. It's not a potential upset. It's a game to watch. That is one of my games that I will have circled. I will be watching when I'm sleeping in the airport. Like that's a game I'm watching.
Fair enough. As long as you're
What
still
other
cheering.
games are you watching?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential upsets. We saw it, like you said, last year UCLA lost as a
Yeah.
1 seed in the first round. Like it could go either way for a lot of these schools. I'm gonna throw it back at you and say I think Iowa's a game to watch.
Yeah, I would agree. And I'll say it right now. Any Iowa people that listen to this pod, I love you all dearly. I will be in the Stockholm airport, spending the night in the airport. Long story. We can talk about that later. And that game is at 1 a.m. my time. And I'm so glad I have something to watch while I'm sleeping in an airport because that game is circled on my calendar. And when I said my mom and I were texting, predicting a bracket, we actually said, we're like, what if Missouri State plays Iowa? And I was like, I hope that game's on Sunday because I want to go to that game so bad. So fortunately, I can't go. Mama Carrie is making the drive. Crazy. But I think Missouri State's a team that can pull an upset here. And I love Iowa to death, but I don't think a lot of girls in this team know who Missouri State is. They probably don't think twice about it. Someone being from Missouri who knows a lot of the girls on the Missouri State roster. I think they're the kind of team that can get under Iowa's feathers in the sense of they have the player of the year in their conference, who actually I did go to high school, played high school soccer with. She is an extremely gritty, aggressive player, like went D2 first, transferred up to Missouri State, like has really owned that program since getting there. And that's the kind of team I think can sneak up on Iowa. It's one of those games, you might be able to outshoot someone, but a gritty play, a big moment, Missouri State can capitalize that. That being said, I'll also say it. I think Missouri State has one of the most underrated goalkeepers in the country in Camille Day. Yes, I am biased. Her mom is in a pickleball league with my mom. But that being said, like she is an incredible goalkeeper and someone that like I've watched all throughout her high school and her college career, like has the all times records of every goalkeeping at Missouri State ever. And I truly, truly think like I don't know what'll happen in that game, but that game will not be as easy as Iowa may think.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Your mom's in a pickleball league?
Yeah, that it's a whole other. Yes, it's all soccer moms actually. So all the girls have all their moms have daughters that play college soccer or competitive soccer, so they needed an outlet apparently.
That's amazing. That is so cute. This little lore you just dropped in there in the middle of
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with a lot of these first round games. I think in the end, you do see a lot of the more, 1 seed, the technical teams that are able to pull it out in the end. But a huge part of postseason is that grittiness, and a lot of times if you're able to play with the underdog mentality, kind of, chip on your shoulder, you're going to be able to pull off some upsets here. Like it's the end of the day, all 64 teams that made the tournament. You have a couple random conference games and whatnot that sure maybe like aren't as good as some teams that didn't make the tournament, and we'll talk about those upsets later, but everyone is good. There's 64 of the best teams in NCAA. Like anyone can win on any given day, and I think a lot of it, everyone's technical, everyone's talented, everyone is an elite soccer player. It's going to come down to who wants it more and who's able to make that gritty play when it comes to the end. So I think there's a lot of games to watch. Like we said, Michigan State, Iowa. Unfortunately, two of the games you have circled on your calendar may not be as easy as we hoped, but another one, Tennessee making the tournament, and I think their game is definitely going to be one that I want to keep tabs on.
Yeah, I agree. They're playing at Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is the seeded team, and the ACC has been strong this year. There's no part in denying that, which obviously that's a league that Virginia Tech's in. But I don't know, man. Tennessee, they made it deep into the SEC tournament, making it to the semifinals. They've tied UCLA this year. Like when I read that one, I think I naturally assumed Tennessee was the host. And so that was one that kind of immediately, I'm like, this one could go either way in that battle.
Yeah, see, Tennessee's one that I was kind of surprised with them just because I feel like I've just heard they've had such like a rough couple years. Their coach leaving, that's now coaching at Florida State. They had a lot of transfers out of their team, things of that nature. So they're a team that's historically been very, very good. It'll be interesting to see what they're able to pull off in postseason because you still have a lot of that talent on their roster. It's just whether or not they're able to capitalize and really use it to the best of their ability here. But thoughts on Vanderbilt versus Lipscomb?
Yeah, that's another one. I really think, listen, I don't know the Vanderbilt program that well. I'm not going to sit here and act like I do. I do know that this is their first NCAA appearance since the 2021 season. And so it's been a bit of a, dry spot for them to finally get back into the tournament and get an at-large bid. But Lipscomb, I think, is another underrated team. They swept through their conference tournament. They currently have the leading goal scorer in the nation with Kira Prawley being their captain. And I just think that team might be doing something special that a lot of people haven't turned to. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's an out, balanced matchup, but I really think that a little bit of grit there, a little bit of something could happen in that upset.
Absolutely. And then the last one we have circled here, Pepperdine versus Cal.
Yeah, I think with this one, this also kind of shocked me that Cal wasn't a higher rated team. And I kind of had to do some digging about what happened. And I think that they just didn't start off their season like the strongest, but they've been ending well. And one of their last games is a win over Stanford. So you can't ignore that. They have the ACC Offensive Player of the Year on their team, which, you would naturally assume would go to a North Carolina or a Florida State or a Wake Forest or a Duke. So for that to go to a Cal, I mean, that's a talented player. And so when you rally around something like that, you have a California versus California matchup. I think once again, those are like the 5 games. Like obviously not even saying like Iowa, Michigan State because it's us. Like those 5 games I think I have circled.
Yeah, if anything, we'd uncircle because it's us, but definitely,
Exactly. We want to hide the attention.
yeah, no upsets, no upsets. But yeah, so what's the number one game that you're looking at? You're like definitely gonna, if you had to put money on it, gonna be an upset.
If I really had to put money on it, I think Cal Pepperdine. I think there's going to be a Cal upset there. That's how, if I would draw up my bracket out of those 5, I think Cal Pepperdine's going to be an upset.
Right. There's always a couple.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how this plays out for sure as we move forward going into it. But I want to know your thoughts on the number one seeds that were chosen.
Yeah. This was a debate I saw in the Twitter community and something like, I think because frankly, Iowa had a chance of getting seeded. Once again, I saw them not getting a 1 or 2 seed. I didn't think they would. I thought they'd get a 3 or a 4, and I think a 3 seed's great. But this year, because of that, I paid attention to the 1 seed, 2 seed kind of competition more. And I don't know how to feel about it. I think the biggest takeaway when you look at the 4 teams that got a 1 seed is I don't think the tournament committee wanted to overly favor the ACC. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I'm surprised that North Carolina didn't get a 1 seed. They make it to the final in their conference tournament. They beat Duke to get to that final in their conference tournament. I know they had a shakier start to the year, but I really think you would have an argument that they are a top 4 team in the country. And so with our 1 seeds being Florida State, Duke, Mississippi State, and USC, I think you see a balance of 3 of the 4 Power Fours right there. 2 ACC, 1 Big Ten, 1 SEC. And frankly, one of the ones I'm kind of questioning is USC. USC gets upset in the semifinals. I know they won our conference tournament, but they weren't undefeated through non-conference. So there's some questions there. I'm not saying which is right, which is wrong. I really have no idea. I do think Mississippi State and Florida State were locks for 1 seeds. But yeah, I think the USC UNC battle was my 2 that kind of interested me.
Yeah, I agree. That's the one I saw the most too and the most controversy around. I don't USC is hard because we didn't actually play them. So I'm not actually like it's all speculation really, or you're watching film on how good they really are. But it was it's like bittersweet with them being so new to the Big Ten, but then now also kind of representing us. I don't know how to feel about that. But yeah, they're definitely when I saw a lot of controversy over and people going back and forth on who deserved what. Another one I thought was really interesting, although they did win the conference tournament, which arguably would have a bigger appeal in the Big Ten committee now because of the unbalanced schedule that we face. And they definitely won it with an exclamation point, beating Rutgers 5-0 in the final, which was definitely, a large win, a large victory. But UCLA being a two seed,
Mm.
I saw some arguments that they should have been over USC as well, with them
Yeah,
being so in the conference tournament or normal conference play and then winning the tournament.
yeah, I could see that argument. I do think that their non-conferences didn't hold up for them when you have a tie to Tennessee. I believe you lost to Kentucky. There was that stint there, like honestly, right after we interviewed Marguerite, that UCLA was struggling. But of that, I do want to say 2 years in a row, the Big Ten champion of the tournament has been on this podcast. So maybe our streak isn't nothing. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know whether or not I want us to like maybe interview Western Michigan real quick before a game. Or you're just going to and everyone we play, we just interview real quick just in case the
Yep.
podcast could be working in our favor.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think that's really what hurt and like shot UCLA in the foot when it came to getting that 2 seed versus a 1 seed over USC. And USC did beat them in regular season and they didn't play again. And that's where once again your questioning of did USC deserve the 1 seed comes into question. Yes, they won the conference, but they didn't play arguably number 3 and number 4 in Iowa and Michigan State. So that is really interesting when you look at how that, kind of broke down. So I don't really know, to be honest. Like I said, I think honestly, also when you have a 1 versus a 2 seed, the difference isn't unreal. That big difference comes from 2 and 3 because you're now no longer hosting that second weekend. But yeah, it'll be interesting overall.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think they followed a lot more closely than in previous years that RPI ranking. They definitely took that as a large account factor into who they seeded, and it followed almost perfectly with where people fell. So it'll be a good tournament. There was last year you're looking at it and you had Stanford, Florida State being undefeated still just like absolute powerhouses as you move forward. I think this year there's a lot more competition within it as no one's undefeated. Everyone's going into postseason with one or multiple losses on their under their belt, and there's not necessarily that or two super strong powerhouses like there were before. There's speculation on every team as they've kind of dropped the ball at certain points throughout season. So I think it'll be a really, really exciting tournament and maybe a little bit more competitive than we've seen in previous years.
Yeah, I completely agree. Going off that, last year we had a record 9 Big Ten teams make the tournament, and that has now been broken with 10 Big Ten teams making the tournament this year. And of the 10 teams, 9 of them are hosting games. The only one not hosting a game was Washington, which I honestly was a little surprised about. What were your thoughts on that, Jordan?
Yeah, I think it's hard because there are only loss in normal season with the loss to Washington and the tie to Oregon that pretty much just like ruined our run at the season here. So I'm pretty bitter about it, not gonna lie. Happy they're not hosting. Like part of me was like that, but they were a really talented team and they were able to hold us. They were able to beat us off two set plays, two free kicks. So I'm honestly surprised. I didn't look that much into their non-conference or anything like that to see what their RPI was of that nature, but they definitely were a talented team. And to be so far below Penn State,
Mm.
who finished 10th in our normal conference, and then they didn't make a run in the tournament either. So it was interesting to see that and how that all worked out for them.
Yeah,
You know,
I completely agree with that. I think you have a case right there with a school with a name. And that might be really unpopular for me to say. I don't have skin in the game now. I can say it. Like, Penn State has a name. I saw a tweet. They have the longest streak in women's soccer history of making every single NCAA tournament for the last 30 years. You just assume they're going to be good. And they live up to that most times. But you finish 10th and then you don't win a single conference tournament, or you win one conference tournament game and then lose in the quarterfinals. Like, Okay, and you get seeded, whereas Washington beats Michigan State, who was like one of the top teams in the country at the time, and then they make it to the semifinals of the tournament after beating Iowa in PKs. You got an argument there. So yeah, that one I think was the biggest surprise to me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think just the amount of discrepancy there was between other Big Ten teams and them versus what they were able to accomplish in that season. It was definitely a little bit surprising. Like I said, I didn't look into the RPI or non-conference. I know the NCAA followed it a lot more closely this year than in previous years for that ranking. But it was definitely surprising, but not as surprising as who I think deserved to be in the tournament and didn't make it, which our number one was Xavier.
Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, Xavier, I mean, they were ranked, they were doing so well. They just to have them not even make the tournament as a at-large bid after I think they had a really good season. They were able to compete amongst the best. We tied them in our non-conference play, and at that point we were both ranked top 10 teams. It it's really, really surprising for me that they didn't make it because they're a super talented program and they got upset in their championship game, but like I I would have put a lot of money to say that they would have and they deserve to be in this NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And this is like that frankly is one of the scary things about playing in a non-power four conference is I think you'd be lying to yourself if you say that there wasn't a power four biasy when it comes to making these brackets. And so when you're looking at an at-large bid, there's going to be a bit of a bias towards a power five. At least precedent has shown there is. So if you're a team like Xavier, who has an amazing record behind them, but you know, came short in that championship game, like that could be it for you. And it proved this year it was. And so that does just add that last bit of fear that you have to win your conference tournament and get that automatic bid, or your fantastic season and your rankings and everything were a little bit for nothing. And that's really sad to say.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely shocked to see that. Number one upset I saw is people were kind of outraged on Twitter, social media about them not making the tournament, and a lot of fans I feel like felt like they deserved to be in there as well. So that was really, really interesting for me to watch. Another one we saw was Pitt.
Yeah. This one, I don't want to say I was shocked because I knew they weren't having a great year. So I can't be like, oh my gosh, like, why didn't they make the tournament? I don't really have an argument to defend them not making the tournament. But it is surprising going from a College Cup Final Four team last year to now not even making the round of 64. And I think that just says like how much of a disappointing season that they did have.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know how many people they like graduated or fifth years they had from last year because I think you're starting to see some of that pool. It would be interesting to see what happens next year with so many of the grad students without that fifth year availability to players and obviously the roster cuts going on. You're not going to be able to have as deep of a roster as people have now. Like how much of an impact that will play and how much that will shake up what we deem to be a normal NCAA tournament bracket. You have certain expectations for certain teams. I think it will look very different next year as kind of all the rules change that we've been used for the past 4 or 5 years.
No, I completely agree. Well, I know, like I said, the games kick off Friday night. There's going to be so many going on. I think majority of them, if not all of them, are being streamed on ESPN Plus. So that is a great way to check out all the games. Like I said, I know I will be watching them. And I really hope all the people listening do, because like I said, there will be some fantastic games. If you need information, Girls Soccer Network will be posting before every round our games to watch. And let's just say the same five might echo from what we already posted. And yeah, I just think there's going to be some really amazing matchups, and it's tournament season, and tournament season's always fun.
Absolutely. Playing for our lives now. Really playing for our lives. And we'll see the grittier team, I think, will come out with the win in most scenarios. I think for our game specifically, whoever scores first will come out with that victory. So fingers crossed it's Michigan State as we walk into our Saturday noon game. But as we move forward, Sam, you have had an incredible pro career thus far. And while you are returning, and we've talked a little bit about that, your professional season is over now,
Yeah.
right? You're wrapping up your first season as a pro. So can you give us a little bit of a recap on kind of where you're at, what you're going through?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think right now I'm just processing what this last year has been in a lot of great ways. I think I just literally have been so go with the moment and live in the moment that I haven't even thought about like what this means or how fast this year have gone is absolutely insane. If I like look back at my life in January to where I'm at now, like it's absolutely, absolutely insane. So I think it's just a lot of understanding and like being grateful for little moments. And yeah, I don't really even know what else to say. So officially, our team, EFCO Norrköping, finished fifth in the Damallsvenskan, which is the highest place we've ever had within the club. We are getting a new coach next season, like we've talked about, and so I think there's a lot of really high hopes that that will really help bolster the team. I think one other really, really exciting thing about the team that is literally unheard of in professional sports is every single player with a contract this year has re-signed. And so there's just going to be a lot of continuity. We're going to have the same squad with a couple additions. And I think that that really says a lot about what the team, the club is building, and that people want to come back. People with other options on the table want to come back. Like we know what this is. And so that's really cool. Personally, I never thought I would have an Iron Woman season my rookie year. I don't know if I ever thought I'd actually have one of those in my career, but I officially made it all 26 Damallsvenskan games, starting playing every single minute. I was the only player within the club on either the men's or women's side to have that season, which I'm beyond grateful for that the club really believed in me enough to take their bets on this random girl from the US and came and just threw me in. And yeah, it's not what I was expecting at all. And if you expand beyond Damallsvenskan's game, I played 100% in 31 games this season. So that's insane. A lot of minutes on my body. So I think the biggest thing right now is my body is shutting down. We have like light trainings this week and it's been brutal to keep motivated. If I'm going to be really honest, my body is ready for a break. And yeah, I scored 2 goals this season. I did score in our season finale last week. I've never scored 2 goals in a season in my life. So that was new information, new news. Apparently, I'm good in the box on corner kicks. Iowa never believed in me on that. Never was the one that was in the box. I always took them, and I've now scored on 2 corner kicks. So we'll take that as a win. And I think that kind of just like leads me into some of my lessons learned. So it's been a lot. I'm so grateful for it. I'm also grateful to get home this weekend and be with my family for the next 6 weeks. But yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you said you're coming home for the next 6 weeks. What does that look like for you? Apparently you're spending the night in an airport, question mark?
Yeah, that'll be a whole crazy thing. This week, why I didn't go home earlier is like obviously there's just a lot of wrap up in the season. We'll do end of year testing. We'll have like a celebration, just stuff like that. So Friday night, of course, they decided to schedule our celebration, which was a little unfortunate because my flight is booked for 6:30 in the morning out of the Stockholm airport on Saturday morning. So our little like dinner slash party is gonna go on Friday night. I'm gonna take the last train out of town. And then at that point, I'm gonna get to the airport at 12:15 at night. So I was like, and I have to check in for an international flight at like 4 a.m. So why spend money on a hotel for 3.5 hours? So I'm just gonna sleep at the airport. So I have college soccer to entertain me. Very excited about that. And then yeah, I'll land Saturday afternoon, which is like I'm literally counting down the days in order to get home and just see with my family. I haven't been back to St. Louis since January. So I haven't seen like my grandma or my brother, anyone like that in so long. So and there's like so many people, even like my college staff, everyone I haven't seen since my wedding. So I know I'll be stopping in Iowa City, saying hi to them, and then spending just time back and forth between Trey's family and mine. And I think I just need to figure out what a pro off season looks like. There's a lot of meetings this week that I'm kind of working with our strength coaches, our athletic trainers, everything to figure that out. You know, I feel like in college, your off season for winter break, let's just say like in January, you got to be ready to pass your fitness test, but like your games don't start till August. So January, that whole spring season's all about growth. And obviously in the pros, it's not like that, but our first game of the season will be like the last week of March. And our report day and our first practice is January 9th. So we do have time. So I don't really know like what part of me needs to be like at that peak physical point, you know? Like I don't know if I'm not going to be there in January. I don't think that's smart, but like where do I find that? You know, do I just take 4 weeks to just completely chill? That won't ever realistically happen. Let's be real, it's me. But like season is now not 3 months long for me. It is, you know, preseason starts in January and you get done in November. It's a long season. And so like how do you best prepare for that? And so the only thing I do know is I'm taking 2 weeks off. I'm not going to the gym. I am not pitching a ball. I am enjoying my vacation for the first time in my life. I think I'm taking 2 strict weeks off and then we'll figure it out from there.
Wow. Who are you and what did you do with Sam Carey?
I'm trying this like healthy thing called balance. We'll see how it works. But yeah, I think that's just kind of where I'm at right now.
Wow, you know it's a long season and your body's shutting down when Sam Carey says she needs 2 strict weeks off.
Oh, we'll also see how well I commit to this. So I might need some accountability check-in.
I'm gonna be texting you, do not play soccer today. But okay, so last time we talked, you mentioned you have a new coach going forward. Last time we talked, you were playing your new coach. How did that go? And what was that dynamic like as you played your future coach with your old coach on your current team that's all returning?
Yeah, it was weird. I won't lie, it was a little weird. I watched by him before the game. I hadn't even met him to this point. We are just kind of like, hey, and we are kind of like, he knows, I know, but like, can't really say anything else. I will say they beat us 1-0, and he had a really good scouting report against us. So that frankly gives me a lot of hope. I think we were bluntly outcoached, out game planned in that game. That also like gives me a lot of excitement that he knows what he's getting himself into. I will say, even on the field, it was very clear he was aware that I was left-footed, and there was a scouting report that I was left-footed, so I was getting forced onto my right a lot. But I was like, oh, I'll take that as a compliment. You think my left foot's good. So maybe I'm completely wrong, and that was just my ego going off. But yeah, it was an interesting dynamic, but I don't really think too much of us were focused on that because it's also like, okay, now you got to impress the new coach. You got to play good. So it was interesting. And then, yeah, we finished our last game of the season last week, which was our head coach's last game in our home stadium. And he's done so much for the club. I'm so grateful for him. Frankly, he's the reason I'm here. And so there's a lot of good about that. It's ready for a new turn. That being said, if there's one thing I've learned about professional soccer, at least for me and how I think I'm very, very used to like focusing on what a coach wants to get out of me and really taking what coaches say to heart. Of course, like I am not saying that like you shouldn't listen to your coach. I'm not saying that by any means, but I think I need to give myself more credit and that I've been playing soccer for literally 20 years of my life. Like I know the sport inside and out. I've lived it inside and out. And I think a large portion the second half of the season, as like our coach knew he wasn't going to be returning and he took that very personally, and a lot of things happened. I let his frustration that got taken out on us damage my confidence. And I think a little bit, especially around September, October, I was not confident in my soccer. And as someone who like preaches confidence and everything like that, I think it kind of hit a new low because like I felt like the whole time like I was like getting told to do things I didn't think I was good at, or I was internalizing, you're not good at this, or you shouldn't do that. And like I stopped really letting my intuitions go because I was like trying so hard to do something to please someone else. I wasn't, if that makes any kind of sense. And so I think no matter the new coach, no matter the coaching change, like I'm really looking forward to it. But I also think my next step in my career, and if there's one thing I've learned from a pro, is coaches come and go in your life. And like that happens at a college level and a club level, but I frankly have never had a club or college coach turnover. It's always been my same coach. It's always been my same college coach. So like understanding that as a pro, I have to know what I'm good at. I have to create my own confidence and I have to create my own space and like rediscover like what I'm good at. I think I let coaches kind of tell me, hey, you're really good at hitting a long ball. So then I hit 15 long balls. Or like the joke is now, like my Iowa coaches frankly believe in me to be in the box on corners. I've now scored 2 goals on corners and I've created a lot of opportunities by being in the box on corners. I'm like the main person that clears headers on corners. I was never that at Iowa. I was a post player. So I think I let coaches influence what I think I'm good at. I get my confidence from them. And my next step in my career is to get confidence from myself and know what I'm good at. And so no matter the coaching change, I think that's the next step in my journey.
I think that's a realization I came to recently as well, and a lot of girls on our team where it's like we learned about this I think it was like a kindergarten class, and essentially you had teachers were told that certain kids were smart and certain kids weren't. The kids that were told they were smart outperformed the kids who were told they weren't by like drastic amounts. And at the end, there was no real difference. It was all like just a baseline study. Everyone came in with the same relative intelligence, or they may have even like flipped it a little bit. But you essentially like you form to the beliefs that the others hold for you. Like if you are told you're good at something, you begin to believe that. If you're constantly preach something, you begin to believe that. If you're told you're not good at something, if you're told told you're bad at certain things, if you're told that's, you know, all of that, like you begin to believe it as well. and you kind of internalize that and you begin to, pull your confidence from others around you. So being able to have that internal motivation and that knowledge of what you're good at and believe deeply to your core that it doesn't matter what others say around you, a lot easier said than done. The power a coaching staff holds because you put them on a pedestal. You believe that they know what they're doing way more than you. You believe that they are, you know, in charge. They're the level of respect. You put them on that pedestal. So then when you have someone that you have on that pedestal telling you these things, you begin to really believe it. And sometimes that's great. Sometimes you need that. Sometimes a coach can pull the best out of you by making you believe you're better than you ever thought you could be. Unfortunately, sometimes it has the power to go the other way as well, where you begin to internalize some things that you thought you were good at or told you're not, and you lose that kind of confidence and that ability you have for yourself. So I absolutely love that. I think that is amazing advice. And moving forward, like what are some other lessons you learned throughout your first pro season?
Yeah. I think if I really were to like break it down, like there's naturally superficial lessons you learn, like in your first year with a massive transition. There's the whole like how to balance life as a pro. You no longer have school. How do you spend your time, and different things like that. But there's some other like deeper key takeaways that I've really been reflecting on. I think one is like for anyone who's in this like the spot, even frankly you, Jordyn, like when you're kind of in that debate of like, do I want to go pro? Do I not? My new number one advice based on everything I've been through this year is like, you just have to know in your gut why you want to go pro and like, don't let anyone sway you from that. I think for a very long time, I let myself be a marketing tool for other people, if that makes any sense. And so like when it comes way back when to being making my decision about, staying and fighting for that NWSL roster spot or going to a place where I ended up playing every single game of every single minute of every single of the season, like that was the unpopular choice because I am no longer marketable because I'm playing in Sweden and I'm not playing in the NWSL. And it's a lot less easy to brag on me because people don't really realize, the difference. Inherently, everyone in the US thinks the NWSL is better. That's fine, whatever. And I let that bother me. Like I let people's reaction to my decision really bother me when I first came here. Now I can look back, see how much better I got this season because I've been playing. And honestly, like take soccer out of the question. I have a community here in this small town in Sweden I never thought I would have. I have friends on this team that I'm way closer with than anyone I was in college. And I was there for 5 years. I have people in my life, and like I wouldn't change this year, this chapter, this last 8 months in Sweden for anything. And so I think like you have to understand, like, I could lose soccer tomorrow. And I know we always say that and we know that. But when it hits you, like I'm 24, I'm not trying to say like I'm old, I'm 24, but like I'm a lot closer to the end of my career than I am to the start of it. That's a reality on the fact. And the fact that like I only have so many years left, so many moments left, we don't even know. Like, I'm not going to waste it in a spot that I don't want to be because it makes someone else happy. And I think really knowing like that I am the one that made the decision and I want to be a pro because I want to be a pro. And I don't give a crap where that is and or how marketable that is or how flashy that option is. And I think that was something I really struggled with early in the season. And like I'm really coming to terms and accepting that.
Yeah. Yeah, we can go into, I think that's something I definitely have been struggling with, knowing where my season is right now. And I have one goal, one assist on the season. I essentially I've played scarce minutes in comparison to what I've been used to in my career for the first, or middle chunk of it. But really, I'm like 5, 6 games deep if you really look at it, of me actually playing soccer, of me actually playing the minutes I'm used to at the level I'm used to and getting back to where I was. And it was a huge decision for me to decide to play this season and going back and forth with it. And now looking at the potential of my season being over Saturday and kind of that battle of what I do now. Do I go pro? Do I not? Going pro was something that always seemed so far away, like a goal that was so unattainable. And now we're here and I probably could do it, but the idea of like I don't know. I think I am quite a bit afraid of the judgment of facing the reality of what I've accomplished this season isn't where I should have been. I think when that whistle blows and my college career is over, I'll be left with a lot of what ifs. I'll be left with the idea that like I was never really able to accomplish what I was capable of and my potential. And I think I honestly I feel as well-rounded and full as a player as I ever have been. I just got there too late in the season
Yeah.
for me now. And I missed that shot and I missed everyone's asking for highlight reels and all this stuff. And I don't know if I have it this season. I know I'm 6 games in and we're facing postseason where you lose and you're done. So kind of trying to face that music and figure out like what I don't even know what my options would be.
Mhm.
Like, am I even good enough to go pro anymore? Like, what all that stuff is and the judgment of all of that, and that judgment of saying I want to go pro and I want to chase this goal and I want to chase this dream when I have 1 goal and 1 assist on a season. Like, that's been really hard for me to get over. And I go back and forth depending on who I'm talking to with the ability to even like admit that I
Yeah.
want that.
No, it's totally fair. And I think my only advice to you is like the options that you once dreamed of might not be the options there. Like we know everything in the US has changed, a lot of structures, but like if you do get that random offer from a club in Hungary and you want to go pro, do it. Like you might get some people saying, "Oh, you could only make it in Hungary or whatever." I got that when I went to Sweden. "Oh, you can't make it in the US, you're going to Sweden." And if there's one thing I learned from this year and like my biggest lesson takeaway is taking that leap of faith. Like I will never forget sitting in my apartment in Louisville on the phone with, frankly, my college assistant coach, Kyle Venter, being like, I don't know if I should stay in Louisville or go to Sweden. And he was a pro player. He played in the MLS and the USL championship. And I was kind of talking about the pros and cons. And he said to me, he's like, you cannot be afraid to take a leap of faith. Like you have to just trust with your gut. And my gut said I needed to get on the plane. And obviously, I don't know what my life would have been if I stayed. It could have been great. I don't know. But everything I've gotten this year, I wouldn't change for the world. And even though they gave me some judgment, that gave me some second looks, it's also was the best thing in my life. And so you have to know why you're playing a pro and like be able to block out the outside world. And trust me, I have not figured out that yet. I think I just now am believing that that's what you need to do as a pro and understand that like I may only get so many more games where I'm able to call myself a soccer player. I don't want to waste them in a place where I'm not happy or where I'm not wanted and where I don't get to actually play.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great advice. And hopefully something I'm able to implement here for going forward. Let me know if you learn the tricks to it, but
All right, that's a next year problem. I don't know what you're talking about.
fair enough, fair enough. But yeah, what are your kind of like closing thoughts as you move forward to the season? You had already signed your contract, you're, you know, going home now, you're taking your break. What's next for Sam Carey?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I don't really know where soccer is going to take me in my life. I know where I want it to take me. I know where I have dreams and aspirations, but like you do truly never know. So I think there is an emphasis of like my whole club career, I was chasing college. My whole college career, I was chasing pro. And now I have kind of figured out like my next goal isn't a team or a league. It's finding that confidence. It's finding that belief in myself. And so, but that's no longer a thing I'm chasing. That's just kind of a state of mind and a state of being. And I think because of that, it's making me live in the moment more. It's making me appreciate the little things. It's making me appreciate small spaces. Frankly, like one thing I love that I did this year is like it's making me appreciate getting involved in the community. Dude, I moved to Sweden and I live in like the seventh biggest city in Sweden or something like that. Like there's 130,000 people that live in the city. Like it's not massive. Getting involved in the community. I like have started mentoring a young Swedish boys team. Don't really know how that opportunity fell into my lap, but I freaking love it. And when those boys got to walk out on the field and be like our little like lineup boys in our game this weekend, it made me so happy. And they all knew my name, and I'm some random person from the US. Like getting involved in these communities that you get to like experience. Like when in my life am I going to get to say I live in Sweden and I play soccer? And so I think we get so bogged down in the what's next. And I'm just kind of trying to live in the what's now. And I'm really excited about that.
I love Oh, I'm gonna get emotional. It's an emotional week for me.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. And I mean, hey, speaking of that with you, like as someone that has been in your shoes, as there's plenty of other people in your shoes this week, doesn't make it easier. Trust me. Like you get to live in the now. And I think don't, as much as you'll be sad when the final whistle blows. And when that final whistle blows, like cry your eyes out, do everything. I did. Try to find moments to not be sad this week and enjoy it. And I know that's so hard, but like when you can enjoy those last moments, like that's what you'll remember.
I think that's honestly my biggest fear as we go forward into the season is that my freshman year we had this turnaround season, and we were able to celebrate the seniors in a way where it's like, look at what we were able to accomplish after all your turmoil and everything you went through. Like we finished fourth in the Big Ten, and we won games, which is something they never thought would happen. We just won games. We didn't make the NCAA tournament, but we made the Big Ten tournament, which is something that like we're never used to. And it was this excitement and sadness that they were leaving, but excitement what we accomplished that season. My sophomore year, you had the same thing. It was that we went undefeated. We won conference. It was the first time making the NCAA tournament. We made it to the second round and we lost and we should have won. And it's sad and frustrating, but at the same time, like look at what we were able to accomplish. And last year, same thing. The farthest we've ever made it in NCAA tournament, conference champs. Like look at what we were able to do. My fear this year is that when that whistle blows, it's going to just be a disappointment of a season, that we got worse, that we never were able to achieve our full potential as a team. You know, I've said that about me as an individual, and obviously I feel that, but as a team as a whole, like when that whistle blows, like it's just going to be left with the question marks of what if, of the potential that could have been, and we never were able to fulfill. Where the previous 3 years, it was always sad as it was to see the season end. We were happy of what we were able to accomplish and do, and it was this enjoyment and the celebration of it. I think my biggest fear is that this year we're just going to be done and it's going to suck and it's going to look back at a season where everyone just kind of like shakes their head and goes like, that was bad.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm trying to like, I don't even know what we would have to accomplish this year in order to get back to that place, and to get there in a spot where it's a celebration and excitement. But I'm really hopeful that we do as we move forward, and that we're able to have those moments where we're still able to celebrate a season at the end of all of this, even though we didn't accomplish what we hoped in conference season, that we're able to get something out of this tournament that we can still be happy about. So a lot still left to play for, you know, and definitely mixed in some of there's so many emotions that come with the end. A lot of them are sad because it's over, but like how lucky am I to have had something so special that makes like saying goodbye so hard. Winnie the Pooh said that. To quote a smart bear. I think that really just sums up like the feelings around all of it. It'll be interesting episode next week, hopefully super exciting. And going forward, Sam will be home and I will be heading to Duke here to play Texas. That is the hope. Fingers crossed for next week's episode.
Sounds fantastic. Well, everyone, tune into the games. Like I said, ESPN Plus all day, all night Friday, all day Saturday. I think there's one game on Sunday, like a singular game. So yeah, tune in, keep updated with it. Girls Soccer Network will be posting all about it. And as always, guys, soccer on.
Saturday at noon. Bye, guys.